I first met my co-host when she had a syndicated talk show all about sex. Sex with Sue McGarvie. And I am the Milkman, John Milky, host of The Milkman Show, heard on radio stations across North America. And my home base, blasttheradio.com. We're glad you're here. Let's get turned on. Sue McGarvie is back from a quickie in Florida.
Yes, it was a quickie, but it was great. We did 4 nude places and we frolicked and I got kicked out of Gatorland. I got kicked out. It's my favorite place. I get an annual pass every year.
You get naked in Gatorland, Sue.
No, but what I do is I get the sticks and I bring in all kinds of hot dogs because they sell them as called Gator Chow, which they sell like cheap hot dogs for like $2 each. So I go to the supermarket and buy a stack of 24 or 48 or 100 and bring them in my backpack and I throw them in and then I stick them on sticks and run it through the cage to feed them. Well, the guy saw me with the stick and thought I was poking the crocodile. I'm like, I never poked the crocodile. I was feeding them. No, lady, you're an anarchist. You get out of here. I was literally escorted out by the rent-a-cop.
Oh, no.
I know. It was really something. So check out my video on my YouTube channel of me feeding the crocodiles. It's a big Nile crocodile with a stick before I got caught.
See, I just read an article in Florida, 6 snakes you need to get to know. I'm like, what? No, you got like 44 species, and these 6 are the ones that can kill you. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Okay. I didn't know that. We had a black racer that was in the back, and it would go up the fence. And it was so neat. Anyway, doesn't matter. I won't talk about it.
See, I was this close to considering, next winter in Florida. Anyway, let's get to the matter at hand, that being sex.
Right.
Is the matter. Mm-hmm. Let's begin with 5 things you should have learned in sex ed, but didn't.
All right. The 5 things you should have learned in sex ed. Number 1, normal sex drive is a myth. It ranges from the I want to do it 14 times a day to very little. We're going to talk about that later and what happens when you don't. Right. Stress, meds, too much weed, not interested in your partner, all can kill your sex drive. Different times in your life, when your hormones are out of whack, you're pregnant, all different times of life affect your sex drive. Okay. Those are things that, people think, it's not normal. And I'm like, depends on what your life is. Over 50, it should be twice a week.
Are they not in, like, when we're learning this in school, are they not trying to give us a basic understanding of what we're going to be facing in high school, college? Beyond that, it's kind of
free for all.
Yeah, you got to rely on podcasts like this
to learn your sex ed, or join the Ducklings, because every week I send out a free sex ed with a book and a video and all kinds of cool new things that let you understand what it is you need to know about your protruding parts. Grown-up sex ed, it's a thing. Okay, number 2, talking about sex is important. And asking your partner questions is important. Do you like this? Do you not like this? If I poke you here, is that a 3 or is that a 1? Is that a, oh my God, I love this? Is that a, yeah, it's not working for me. Talking about sex, being able to say, I'm a little kinky. Anyway, it allows you to be able to do that.
Sorry, you were singing my song there for a moment.
I was singing your song. Number 3, toi. Sexuality can be fluid, meaning you are able to be a little more bi, a little less bi, a little more alternative at different points in your life. There are, especially among straight cis women, like conventional women, are more likely to be a bi or want to play with other women at different points in their life. I found at different points in my life, I've been far more attracted to women than at other points. And that's normal. So if you're feeling it, like you're turning into a lesbian.
To women, I do.
Yeah. Well, but if you're a woman who thinks you're turning into a lesbian, don't sweat it. It's fluid. Okay. And nobody tells you that. Number 4, STIs are way more common than you think. And some of them are not nearly, they're more common, but they may not kill your sex life forever. There used to be a belief that if you got herpes, your sex life was over. And that is so not true. Unless you have an outbreak, your sex life for the most part is fine. Okay. And there are things you can do to prevent outbreaks. Or that HPV, that 80% of people have it, and your body will naturally fight that off unless it doesn't. So there's some things you need to do about getting informed, but they're more common and sometimes more erratic than you think, and you need to get informed. And the last
We've
one,
talked about the STIs before, by the way. So someone
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, if you go back through previous episodes, it'll be in the show description, so you can go back for more information on those. I sure learned a lot in previous conversations we've had about STIs.
or send us an email, sue@sexwithsue.com. Give me a question, and then we'll answer it specifically for you.
There you go.
Like
Sure.
free sex therapy. Where else do you get that? And number 5, fertility and pregnancy. The younger you are, the more likely you are to get pregnant. And that 10 to 15% of pregnancies end in miscarriages, and they don't tell you that either.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Can I throw in, okay, especially for the younger people listening, okay, we're talking, 20s, 30s, even into your early 40s. When a couple hasn't had a kid, stop blaming her all the time. Because a lot of times
it's him. Yeah.
It can be him too. And nobody ever seems to, go to the guy and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like it's just, and the woman tends to take on the brunt of all of that. That's been my experience, and it breaks my heart because she's not the issue, I am.
Yeah. And again, you could have, donor sperm. There's lots of options if you choose to do it, or you say, "Nah, I don't think I want kids. I got fur babies. I don't need them." Right?
I would have loved to have had kids, but
yeah, it wasn't a thing. Okay. But the idea is that, and that's so 40% of the time it's men, 40% of the time it's women, 10% of the time it's both of you, and 10% of the time it's a mysterious. They don't know why.
Go.
Yep.
All right. Those are 5 things you should have learned.
Yeah.
You learned them here on Turned On, the podcast.
Okay. So we are talking about different kinds of things you can do and why you need to keep your sex drive up, why sex is medicinal. I think we should have bumper stickers, sweetie. Turned On the podcast, sex is medicinal.
I can make those happen.
You can make those happen. All right. I'm
even better. Pasties.
Sex is medicinal. Yes.
Boober stickers.
Boober stickers. All right. I'm in. All right. That would be fun. Turned On. It's a long name. So we'd have to have a big breasted woman. Turned On the podcast across her chest. I got these fun, I told you those last times, these fun markers. And I'm now changing. I'm going to duckling events and writing it on people's faces and their bodies because it sort of washes off. And it allows you to write them without actually going to the dollar store and getting more name tags. So that's a good thing.
I love how you bring it up when you talk about your new magic markers.
I love my magic markers, but you could write, Turned On the podcast, or, sex is medicinal. So older men with lower sex drives are at a much higher risk for an early death, according to a Japanese study. And it's quite a significant, this wasn't just, a little bit, this was a lot. Lack of sexual interests leaves you, sort of more than 20% likely of having an early death. And you're just like, oh my God. And whether it's the lack of sexual interest and that, it gives you fun things to do and you're more likely to, walk taller, have a joie de vivre, or is it what I believe is lower testosterone, and testosterone is healing and protects you. And if you have a lower testosterone, you're more likely to get other kinds of diseases and then kick off early.
Okay.
So you want to, if you find your sex drive diminishing a lot, go get it checked. And there are reasons for it because it could be life or death. So you want to be at the high end of normal when you get your range done. Testosterone is a good thing. For women, it looks like hand cream. For guys, it looks like hand sanitizer. And it really does put you back to 30. So if women lose their hormones at 50, all of a sudden they're more at risk for other kinds of diseases.
So here's a question. Someone, okay, so we're talking a man in his 50s who's single, not dating, and just kind of feels not crazy about sex, has no interest in it. Should that be alarming to them as well? Because I think they can convince themselves very, very easily that, well, I'm not with anybody and I'm not looking to be with anybody. Therefore, I have no interest in this. It's not a concern.
And maybe that's, it doesn't distract you. You're not able to worry, you're not worried about it. I think, I've been saying this before that we have the technology to put us back to 30. Otherwise we become the old hobbling deer in Algonquin Park. And that the pack of wolves takes those guys out. So what happens when you age is you actually smell differently. Your hearing goes, like all kinds of things happen. But what's most important is the things that keep you virile and healthy, because nature wants to take you out if you are no longer making babies and propagating the species. You are just using resources, you're eating and drinking, and you are no longer contributing. So biology wants you gone. So if you are not feeling the need to spread your oats, even if they don't fall on fertile ground, because you're, older and you're banging other people who don't have fertility issues anymore, it still is your body keeps you young and healthy and in the game. So I think if your testosterone level is in the toilet, means you're turning, you fall asleep on the couch after dinner, you put on weight on your belly, you smell differently. You lose muscle tone, which affects, bone density and osteoporosis. You don't want to be those hunched, question mark guys.
Right. Those
kinds of things. But it was really gobstopping about the issue. If you do not have a sex drive, if you're an older guy and you're meh about sex, maybe something to ask your doctor about, because it can lead to an early death. And the stats this was a big study, like more than 10,000 men followed for more than 8 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. So there you go. Keep it up, dude.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally. Well, and I'm not worried about you. You're a hound, so I'm not worried about you at all.
I just play one on the radio, Sue.
Yes, you do.
All right, sex addictions. And we've all heard talk about that. Well, what is a sex addiction and what are the signs to look for?
So basically, it's compulsive masturbation, paying for sex, porn. But what it means is if sex or sexual activity has become such a priority in your life that you can't give it up, even when it has negative consequences. Like your partner's like, dude, get off the porn. Or I can't believe you've spent our rent money on sex workers. Or you're going into the office and have to jerk off in the bathroom and your boss could come in and you could lose your job. It's an intimacy disorder. Okay. So it's 3 to 5%, maybe 6% of the population struggle with it. And it's 20 to 25% of that 3 to 6% are actually women. And often it's because the intimacy disorder, they have a difficulty relating to themselves and others, often because of trauma. So what happens is they're compelled, they want comfort, but then they end up feeling worse afterwards, and it feeds the dragon, right? They want more sex and to get the same high. I had a client who literally had to take his mouse and click it constantly on different images, like one of those porn sites that have all different pictures, yep, and click them to stay hard, because he was so addicted. It's so much about newness for him that he couldn't do that. And it impacts, there is certainly some, I used to say that porn was if you did it a little bit and it was used just to help you get off, that's a harmless pleasure. Right. Except now the research saying that any porn can impact how you perceive potential partners and how you relate to them.
Sure.
Whether that's bad for you, lots of people would say that is. As I said, I think if it's a moderate tool, I use erotica, lots of people use porn. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. What I am saying is, look at how much you're doing.
To me, and listen, I always say this and I mean it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sue. You're the expert on this. I'm the hound, as you so aptly described. It's with porn, it's the ability to separate the reality from what you're seeing on the screen. Yeah. I mean, it's over dramatized. It's professionally shot most of the time. It's directed by people. It's camera angles. It's not real life, and it's not indifferent to any other type of movie. It's right. By and large, it's fiction. So if you're able to separate your real sex life from what you're seeing on Pornhub or X-Hamster or whatever site you're into, then you're probably okay. Yes.
Yep. Yes, and that's part of it. And if you absolutely need the newness in order to get off, it starts making sex with real people, because I talk about that, the Hugh Hefner version of sex, and how that most women aren't going to look like it. And I wish I had taken a camera crew into the back rooms of some of the porn shoots I was invited to, because we used to have Canada's biggest porn producer in Gatineau. And, I know Stuart Duncan, he's a really nice guy, but owned and did all of those videos for, Bell Express View and all of those places. And he invited me.
That was done right in their backyard in Ottawa.
Right in their backyard in Ottawa. Yeah. And he, really clever guy, really, really clever guy. Yeah. The big story about him is he's a satellite guy. And he had all this extra satellite room. What are we going to do? We're going to put porn on it. Well, this is during the 80s when Ronald Reagan was in power and cut all the porn in the US. But because he was a Canadian company shooting it into the US, the Canadians couldn't stop him because he wasn't broadcasting in Canada. The Americans couldn't stop him because he was Canadian and his office was in Canada. He made a fortune, an absolute fortune. And, they had like $8 million in the bank before they even started because all the Americans are like, sign me up because there's no other place to get it. Anyway, what a brilliant business guy and local. But it was about its acting. They all had fluffers. And it was, as Erica Jong said, the first 5 minutes you see it, you want sex. The next 5 minutes, you never want sex again. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've often thought I would really, really, really like to spend some time on a porn set. But then I think, I would probably walk away from that really dissatisfied. It would really let me down. And yeah, you're right. I would probably be horrified or mortified by some of the things that I saw.
Yep. And yep. Yeah. So it's so if you're struggling with sex addiction, it's time to see a therapist. If you can't stop, it's like any other kind of addiction that hits the pleasure centers of the brain. You may want to ask for some help. If you need a referral, let me know. Sue@sexwithsue.com.
All right. Next up on the docket. That's right. The Turned On podcast now has a docket.
A docket. Yes. Yeah,
we're all fancy like. Squeaky clean sex toys, Sue. But
I thought this was so good.
I can't even say this without cringing. Buying used sex toys online.
Yep. There's a whole thing. It became a business model because people were like, because you can buy a Lilo toy for, they're like $270. If you hate it.
What's a Lilo toy?
Oh, a Lilo is a brand of toys. I don't have one handy.
We're talking vibrators. We're talking
vibrators, silicone. They're medical grade silicone. They're beautifully made. German toy, really cool. Like there's some really good toys.
It's an insertable, I would assume.
It's an insertable. Okay. And it is, but it's big money, right? There are lots of expensive toys. Some of the new Wii Vibes are, upwards of $300. So if you get it and it doesn't work. I remember the first time I had the Wii Vibe in, I'm like, it kept falling out. It didn't sit the right spot. And you were supposed to be able to have, and you could, but I didn't love it. Or everybody kept talking about this womanizer and how it was this suction, and some people love it. And I'm no harm if you love it. I got it and went, meh. And I'm thinking, I got mine as a review copy, so I didn't spend the $300. But if you did and it went meh, it's not something you can take back until now. SqueakyCleanToys.com. Have a look at it. You can, instead of paying $300, you can get them for $90 or $80, and the site takes a bit. And so one of the things I thought was super interesting, so they take ones that are medical grade silicone. They don't take the cheap ones, but what happens is they give you directions on how to wash them, but they tested it. So they washed it even with really good, toy cleaners and things that disinfect it. They found trace elements of HPV even after washing. But if you leave your toy 24 hours, just leave it, drying on the, countertop after you've washed it, there is no trace of HPV after 24 hours.
I just, anybody who's ever bought a sex toy, you go into the shop, they do the little demo, they put the batteries in it, they show you that in fact it is working. Now ordering online is obviously something, completely different.
Uh-huh.
But, traditionally you walk into a store and they show it, and they are very, very, very matter of fact with you. You cannot return this. This is a personal item. And I've always been horrified when they say that, like, really, like, people try and return these and they're like all the time. The idea of this grosses me out. But now you're saying we're in a place where, okay, the cheap ones, yeah, we can't do much with them, but there are certain quality of toy
I know. I'm not signing up for it. I'm just saying I thought it was an interesting discussion. So
Yeah.
if because I like thrifting, I bought my little, here I am in my little Irish sweater I bought at a vintage store in Almont.
Okay.
I'm sure half of my clothes.
I'm fine with the used sweater. I really hesitate with the other warm.
Used butt plug is not your thing, huh?
No.
Yeah, I know. Well, there is a thing, and if people want it, and I'm sure they can fetishize it, but I'm just saying that after you wash it squeaky clean and they send it to you squeaky clean, you can rewash it, leave it out on the counter for 24 hours. What they found was after 24 hours, even after cleaning, everything was gone. So air kills HIV, it kills it all.
Sure.
So leave it for 24 hours. That was my thought.
I am dying to know, you, the listener, viewer of this podcast, would you buy a used toy? Let us know. Sue at Sue.com. You can text the show in the States. It's 941-725-6455. In Canada, 613-604-6464. Just a quick little survey. Would you buy a used sex toy?
I think there's going to be a lot of hell no's. But we'll see. That's their business model. All right.
Well, from used sex toys to stuff to clean your muff, Sue.
I found it. Or Graham found it, in fact, but there it is. Love your muff. Squeaky clean, not sex toy cleaner, muff cleaner. So look at this. Love my muff. Soft spray. You can keep it in your purse. Give it a little thing. They have little almost like hand sanitizer. Yeah, but they've got these little hand sanitizer pack, like the wet wipes you get after you have wings. Well, They have them for Love Your Muff. They have like the special soap for Love Your Muff. I got a whole series of products. I left them in Florida because they got them in the US and I had put them to my address, but OMFG, they smell good. I actually, because it's so easy to use on all of these protruding parts, I use them on my face because they're just natural stuff. Like the cleaner is so gentle.
Stuff on your face?
Well, it's just a gentle cleaner. I wanted a gentle cleanser for my face. I didn't want to use the yucky soap, and it was better to use the muff cleaner on my face as well as my muff.
Sue, I've had actual muff on my face. I never thought it was cleaning, but okay.
There you go.
Is that too much?
So the idea of, the scent of your, of your genitals, whether it's a vagina, a penis or somewhere in the middle, will vary on things like hydration, recent food intake, eat your pineapple. Where's your pineapple, dude? Where's your pineapple? Is it closed?
Turn it upside down and then
yeah. And you want to make sure the medications, if you're on medications, it can affect it. Overall health status, where you are in your menstrual cycle, whether or not you're circumcised, whether or not you've got hair, because hair continues, keeps odor. There's a whole TikTok about saying stop using soap on your genitals. I think stop using harsh soap. I think really gentle cleanser. Think of it as like the Woolite for your body. You have to have your sweater. You can't put it in the washing machine and just make it go. Speaking
of things we need to turn into bumper stickers.
Love your muff.
As the Woolite for your body.
Yeah. I know, right? So clean your muff and make sure, because you don't want to. So it reminded me, because I'm in Florida and there's hot tubs, and I'm in the bathtub because I have my room is a waterfall, and I've got the bathtub all done, and I'm in the bathtub like 3 times a day because there's a little waterfall comes down, and I've got these Epsom salts, and I want to sit in the bathtub, and I'm telling you, I am fresh as a daisy down there. I am like so clean. The hot tub cleans everything out. I certainly wash twice a day, but there are times where I am so clean that, I'm sure you could eat off me. Just saying.
Shut up, John. Shut up. Look at that. That's growth, isn't it?
It is growth.
I'm now biting my tongue on this podcast.
So I don't get endorsed by it, but I keep thinking, who's our sponsor? We should get the Love Your Muff people to sponsor us. Where are they?
I can't remember the name of it, but I know that there's a similar product for men. I walked into a store in the Byward Market in Ottawa one day looking for a hat. And I know it was the Irving River store. And I walked in looking for a hat, and the guy's like, "Hey, do you need some stuff to clean your balls?" Because we sell it now. And I'm like, hey, that's great. moisturizer cleaner stuff.
Moisturizer cleaner
Shower.
stuff. Well, I'm going to see if the Love Your Muff stuff will give us some samples in the very end. And if you send us a question, you'll get free shit. I have all kinds of free shit. So you never know what you might get if you send us an email with a question. Make one up. You know,
and the address again
use
is
your friend's name, Sue@sexwithsue.com.
All right. And finally, falling in love with sex robots.
Yep. The robot company, apparently they're, the psychologists are concerned about it. There's certainly some issues around what happens. So companionship, novelty, sex, it's a hobby, it's your therapist, it's your best friend. And apparently there is a percentage of people who do not have regular interactions. These are the, sort of the antisocial introverts, not quite, just who don't have a lot of other kinds of community, another reason to get community,
right,
are falling in love with their robots. And then, of course, robots break down and it gets weird. Yep. So we are herd animal. We need community. Find your people, right? Whether it's my group, another group, find it, but join something.
So falling in love with the sex robot or becoming obsessed with, or like it's a real fine line, isn't it? There's a real slippery slope. Like I can understand if the conversation is addicted to sex robots, but falling in love with, to me, I'm imagining someone showing up at the office party and, hey, I'd like you to meet my robot K1463.
Yeah. It's that episode. We should find that clip, the episode from Firefly, the movie. Do you remember the movie with Firefly? The Josh Whedon movie? I'm
familiar with it.
I'm a big fan, but there's a whole scene about how he married his sex bot, at the end. Oh yeah. And fell in love with it. And they were a couple, him and the sex bot. So, I'll see if I can find you the link. Yeah. Put that in. Flip.
All right. That's bonus material for you on this week's edition of Turned On, the podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, Google. You can have us on in the car, in the headphones, in the gym. And if it's easier for you because you just don't understand how to access podcasts, I've put it up front and center on my radio station's website. So if you just go to blasttheradio.com, you just click the play button. Easy.
Tell your friends. We want to be, we're top 50 in Australia. We want to be, it would be great if we were top 50 here because people would actually like us. And tell your friends.
Sue, that's ambitious. Let's start. My goal, let's be number 69 in Canada. Turned On the podcast back in 1 week's time. Hey, if you got a question for Sue, you got comments on the podcast, we're on Google, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on iHeart, we're on Amazon Music. Ask your smart speaker to play Turned On the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. What's the email address, Sue?
Sue@sexwithsue.com.
Forward to another conversation a week from now.